Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of River, a Japanese comedy from 2023 that was directed by Junta Yamaguchi, who previously gave us Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes from 2020, a very impressive film that I previously reviewed on this channel. If you haven't seen that movie, check it out. Now, both of these movies deal with abnormal manipulations of time, but in different ways. So the following plot synopsis was taken from the website Sight and Sound. Now, the film puts us in the tranquil town of Kibune, where Mikoto, played by Fujitani Riko, an industrious waitress at the Fujiya Inn, has just taken a break beside the Kibune River. A handheld shot tracks her journey back into the inn to clean a room. 2 minutes later, the film cuts to Mikoto back at the riverside spot. She and her colleague experience deja vu as they repeat the same steps as before, and then Mikoto is transported back to the river yet again. Now, everyone in town is affected by these recurring loops, retaining their memories and emotional states across each 2-minute jump back in time. Dining friends have their bowls constantly replenished, while the writer's words keep getting erased every 2 minutes, as they have no idea when this phenomenon will end. The inn staff, amusingly, try to keep their guests happy above all else. But the chaos of infinite hospitality quickly proves too punishing. Workers and visitors team up to determine the cause of the loops and how to stop them. So the opening 7 minutes has some setup before the time loop kicks in. We get a brief introduction to some of the main characters, mostly through their interactions with each other and visitors at the inn. Then we get a shot of the river, the title screen, and then off we go with the time loop stuff. Now, some may compare this to older movies like Groundhog Day, and the premise is similar to a degree, but these are actually very different films. Even if we restrict our comparison to the premise itself, for one thing, the time loop in River is much shorter. Instead of the same day repeating over and over again, it's the same 2 minutes. And another huge difference is that everyone in this town is aware of the time loop, and everyone experiences it, and they need to work together in order to find a solution. So very cool concept here. Now, we've already made some important observations, like the director of Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes returning. In terms of direction, I do need to touch on the filming style here. Each 2-minute segment is presented most of the time as an uncut, uninterrupted take without edits. And it seemed like most of these segments were actually filmed in a single take, with the camera kind of following the characters as they run around and interact. There were a few handful of exceptions, though, I think. There were a few scenes where it seemed like there was edits involved. That's pretty impressive, though, because it requires a lot of logistics and timing for an extended period of time. Because if one person screws up, you need to reset everything and reshoot that 2-minute segment again. This is not a film that can be saved, or as they say, saved in the editing room. That's not really possible here. Now, another very important fact is that the writer of Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes also returns here, Makoto Ueda. Now, this is pretty huge because a time loop premise does benefit from good writing. In fact, I would say that River is heavily reliant on its screenplay, similar in ways to a stage play because you have such a limited number of locations. And Ueda is a fine writer, so we're good there. And this does have very effective comedy. The writing in the comedy is quite nice. The staff at the inn, they're still trying to cater and serve their guests, despite the fact that they're in this crazy time loop that doesn't make sense. And the guests begin to react impulsively to the time loop problem. So there's some nice bits of humor that arise from this. There's an early scene where, there's two guys eating their rice, and the servers come in, and they compliment the servers on their bottomless bowls of rice, and the rice just keeps refilling itself. And then the waitress is like, "Oh, we can't really take credit for that. I think we're in a time loop." And then one of the patrons says, "Well, can I have my hot sake now?" And the other waitress gets angry because she's been attempting to heat up some sake for him, but because it's a 2-minute time loop, it keeps foiling her plans and she can't get it hot enough and deliver it to him in time. So it's like there's a lot of like situational type time loop comedy in this, and it's all very like pleasantly I guess, portrayed. It's not abrasive humor. There's a lot of laid-back humor and situational humor, which I'm a big fan of. The characters do run around a lot, because when they decide to meet up and decide, like, okay, how are we going to stop these time loops? They can't have one big meeting for like 10 minutes. They got to break up the meeting into 2-minute segments. So they get transported back to their starting points, and then they got to run to the meeting room and have a discussion, and the meeting's broken up again, and then they run back in. So there's a lot of stuff like that too. It has a little bit of it's a pleasantly paced and presented film, but there's a little bit of a manicness to it as well, which I liked. Now, if you're worried that like this 2-minute time loop thing might be too repetitive, the runtime is only about 1 hour and 26 minutes long, and the film kind of branches off at spots. I'm not going to tell you really what happens, but, obviously, like, the first act is people just trying to figure out, like, what the heck's going on, and just trying to, like, serve their customers somehow in this time loop, and then it progresses to, like, other little subplots and backstories, as the film moves along. So they mix things up just enough to keep you going. And then there's an added bonus to this is, like, the snowy forest environments are very nice. You have, like, this chilly river and, like, some snowy forest stuff. And it's a nice film to watch this time of year, actually. Now, I will admit, I was curious. I checked the runtime of this movie multiple times because it's supposed to be 2-minute time loops. And what I found was that during each time reset, they do come pretty close to 2 minutes, like almost exactly. So, like, the time loop will start, and there'll be about 2 minutes of runtime when the time loop ends and then it resets. But, there were a few occasions where the filmmakers cheated a little bit, where the segments might be a little bit different in length, just by mere seconds, though. Not a big deal, obviously, because you're not going to notice it unless you check the runtime. And to be honest, it probably benefits the movie because you want the resets to arrive at the appropriate time that the script demands. So, but it's just something I noticed. I had to check a few of them. I'm like, are these really 2-minute, like, real-time segments? And it's pretty close. But, there's not really a lot to complain about with this. If you're in the mood for a pleasant, family-friendly, time loop movie, you could check out River. I strongly recommend this, especially if you want to kind of keep up with modern Japanese cinema. Currently streaming on Amazon. There's a Region B Blu-ray available now, I believe, from Third Window Films. And then Terror Vision, I think, is going to release a Region A Blu-ray, which looks like it has some pretty cool artwork, through their sub-label Grave Face Films. So, that might be the U.S. release. So, plenty of ways to watch this one. Check it out. And as always, I'll see you next time.